Hi, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Byron. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Motortalk with Witzenberg. Motortalk is met Witzenberg. I'm your host for tonight, Abdul Sayed, and my partner on the other side there, Mr. Byron. Hi, I haven't spoken to you for a whole month, my friend. How are you doing tonight?
It's been a long time, Abdul, to be back in everything as well, and it's great to be back. I'll say that much. You're looking good, by the way.
Thank you. Well, we fasted for a whole
Really
month,
healthy.
so I lost a couple of kilos, I would assume. So, when I get back into my Gymkhana car, I'll be a few kilos lighter. I'll be able to accelerate quicker and brake later. So hopefully it'll take off a couple of seconds of my time there. Yeah, I just want to welcome all the guests here tonight, everybody out there. And I know you guys have missed us for the whole month. We have two very interesting guests tonight, and we have an interesting program tonight. We're going to talk about facts and fiction about, as far as lubricants are concerned, all types of lubricants that you use in your road car, that you use in your race car, and whatever other thing you have in your lawnmower, I would suppose as well, whatever thing drives there. So I just want to welcome onto our show tonight, Taki from Motu. He's a technical advisor, if I'm not mistaken, and Lloyd Lingeveld from 435 Oils. He's the Western Cape retailer or distributor of Motu products. So welcome to our show tonight, guys.
I think Lloyd is just joining us again.
Thanks for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. It was long overdue. The show was supposed to happen a long time ago, but I mean, you guys are quite busy. Lloyd's back. I can see there. Hello, Lloyd. How are you?
Hey, evening, everybody. How's it?
Okay, there we go.
We really good, really good. Nice to have you guys on the show. Thank you for giving up some of your time there for us tonight to maybe clarify a few, questions people have about lubricants and whatever else you guys do. Byron, my co-host, is on top there. Thanks, Byron, for everything you do in the background there and in the foreground, should I say. And maybe you can fire away with some questions here, Byron.
I think first and foremost, I'd like to invite everybody as well who is watching on Facebook and on YouTube. Please send us your comments and also your questions as well regarding anything to do with lubricants, whether, like you said, if it's for your 4-stroke, 2-stroke, you name it, these guys will answer it. And I think starting off first with Taki, maybe. Take us through your start. How long have you been working for Motortalk?
Yeah, so just with your comment there on any questions that anybody has, they're welcome to send them through. I'm always happy to answer them. I might not be able to answer everything, but if I can't, I'll be honest with you and tell you I can't, and then find the right answer and get you the right answer. From a Motortalk point of view, I actually started out racing for Motortalk back in 2012, racing off-road bikes for them, and started working for Motortalk in 2019 after finishing my chemistry degree. From there, we've just grown, and Motortalk's been an awesome company to work with, and I've had great experiences learning about the different lubricants, and it's assisted in daily life from servicing my car, my race bike, and like you said, my lawnmower. And there's so much to know, and I think it's a topic that's often misunderstood by everybody. And lots of people think oil is just oil. But as we go on with tonight's show, hopefully I'll be able to change that opinion on lots of people. And just give as much information as we can. I mean, from a Motortalk point of view, we run a campaign called Myth versus Fact, because there's so many oil myths out there. So let's try to crack them all tonight.
Okay, that's a good idea, Taki. So I don't know what happened to Lloyd. I think he's still gone to...
He's having a bit of trouble with the sound.
Yeah, or maybe there's something to do with his connection or something. But anyhow, maybe you come back and we can, catch up with him again. Just a quick one, Taki. How did 435 Oils in the Western Cape and you guys, get into this, should I say, partnership or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, so 435 Oils is one of our dealers out in Western Cape in the area. And we've been working together for quite a while. Lloyd's been asking great questions, and we've been building on the relationship wherever we can. I think he's got a good influence in the area, and passes on the knowledge correctly, which is really cool. So myself and Lloyd chat every now and then. He'll drop me an email when he's got a question that a customer has, and we'll try to pass on that information, which I think is an awesome route to the market, and it allows that accessibility to the information to the end user, because I think often the end user's forgotten about, and they don't always have the access to the information that they require.
Okay. There's Lloyd back again. Hello, Lloyd. Can you hear us, Lloyd?
Yeah, sorry, man.
Can you hear us?
I think sound
Yeah,
might be a
can
bit
you
of a
guys
problem still. All right, there we go.
Can you guys hear me?
Okay, just say something about oils, and we can tell us if we can hear you.
All right.
Okay, well, we seem to have a technical problem.
We might have a technical problem.
Yeah, we're going to go on regardless. So anyhow, coming back to Taki there. Okay, so, like we said, lubricants and oils and brake fluid and, gearbox oil and diff oil, that is kind of your guys' forte. So let us start with oil. I mean, oil is, people talk about oil all the time. So you get race cars, you get normal road cars, you get the newer cars, you get the older cars, you get 5W40s, 10Ws, I don't know, 50, you name it. I mean, whatever. Start with oil and start with oils first. There's so much to talk about.
Simplify oil. There we go.
Simplify oil.
In a nutshell, what should we be using and why?
It sounds simple, but it's not that simple. But okay.
Easy as that. Just quickly make a massive topic simple. I think the easiest way I can put it out is if you think of cooking, baking cake, and I think this is probably the best analogy to explain it. You get a recipe, but everybody's got a slightly different recipe, and the things that you put in may be of a different quality as well. It's like my friend baking some carrot cake for me versus my Oma baking some carrot cake for me. Nobody's carrot cake is going to be as good as my Oma's. And Motor's been formulating oils for what we established in 1853, so 168 years now. And each year developing on that, not even each year, every single event, wherever we are, we develop on that to make a better product. You'll see the Motor branding out at like Le Mans 24 Hours, MotoGP, Dakar Rally. And at each of those events, we have a lab, we're sampling oil, and we're trying to come up with something better that we can offer the customers. And wherever we can benefit them, we test it out on the racetrack in the harshest environment we can to bring that into the everyday lubricants. If there's something that benefits the everyday cars, we bring that across. So you got a big recipe that you have to follow for different lubricants. Each lubricant's got a specific recipe. It's like if you're making a roast, you're not using the same recipe as making a dessert. So for racing products, you have to have a specific design around that lubricant. For everyday product, you've got some design. Gear oils need something different. Coolants obviously need something different. And everything's got its purpose, and every product's got its place. So at Motor, we're very specific on the right product for the right application. There's so many different applications. So there isn't just one oil that fits all. And especially with today's cars, they're becoming very, very complex and different, very intricate components getting put onto the cars. And these components are sensitive, and oil's one of the factors that have to be taken into account. And that's where you start seeing things like a 5W30 with different standards on the bottle. Nowadays, you even get a 0W16, 0W12. So very, very thin lubricants that are coming out. And that's because of the engineering tolerances of the cars and how vehicles have pretty much moved on. And the engineering is just it's really taken off. If you look at emissions and power that's coming out of little cars and fuel economy, all of that, and that comes back to the engineering and the lubricants designed around that engine. And that's why lubricants have evolved so much. And you've got lubricants from 1970, and they've just kept changing. So it's important to have the right product for the right application. I think that's the biggest thing I want to try to get across to everybody. Understand your application and make sure you're using the right product for that application.
Okay, so Taki, now, you kind of use, my friend told me that that's the good oil. He's been using this car for 50 years, and I have the same car, so I kind of just use it. So let's go specifically to oil. So you said 0W60, you get a 5W50, you get a 10W40. Just tell us what is the so-and-so W, what is that? Well, what does it mean?
So the numbers you talk about are SAE viscosity grades, and that's a representation of the viscosity of the oil. The first number is often misunderstood. People think that the first number determines the thickness of the oil when the car's running. But the first number, followed by the W, represents the oil's viscosity characteristics at cold temperatures. So that's purely for startup. So the lower the number, the thinner the oil. So a 5W30 will be thicker than a 0W30. So 0W, your thinnest, 5W a bit thicker, 10W thicker, and 15W even thicker. That's purely at startup. So that we call it the cold temperature viscosity grade. It's actually measured at 40, but that's for when you crank the car, how fast that lubricant circulates in the engine. The second number is a very, very crucial number, and that's for operating temperature. So when your car gets to 100 degrees Celsius, which every car is designed to get to, your engine operating temperature will be set at 95 or 100, 105, the engine oil operating temperature. And no matter where you're driving, if it's in the North Pole at minus 40 degrees Celsius or South Africa on a hot summer's day at 40 degrees Celsius, your car is designed to operate at that temperature. So you've got to keep the second number exactly what the original equipment manufacturer recommends. So your OEM will recommend a viscosity grade for that, and you've got to keep that the same. With that said, if your owner's manual says use a 10W40, you must always keep that second number of 40, but you can go and use a 5W40 or a 0W40. And that's actually a benefit to you because the oil will circulate quicker at startup. However, when it reaches 100 degrees Celsius, it will be the same thickness as what the 10W40 would be. So it just shows that the rate at which the oil thins. So it will thin out a bit slower if you have a 0W40 compared to a 10W40. I hope that makes it simple. I don't want to confuse anybody. So just shout if it doesn't sound like it's very clear.
No, it makes absolute sense even to me. Byron, you had a question about older cars and high mileage cars.
I did, yes. I've always spoken to guys, and what happens is with synthetic oils versus multi-grade oils versus mineral oils. And I, of course, race when I can a 1300 Toyota Tazz, which is a 1999 model. And I was advised by someone that a mineral oil should be used instead of a synthetic oil. But as you've told us off air, that's not quite true, is it?
Yeah, so I often get, my car's in 1998. I cannot use a mineral oil because it's before synthetic. I cannot use a synthetic oil because it's before synthetics were developed. So Motor was actually the first company to develop a synthetic car oil, and that was in 1971. So synthetic oils have been around since 1971. So that's definitely a myth saying that you cannot use a synthetic. It's more important to look at the specifications on the oil. Certain cars in their owner's manual will have a specific specification. You'll see something like API, SM, or SL, and you've got to stick to what's required. I mean, that keeps updating, and you need a lubricant that's compatible with that specification. You actually benefit yourself by using a synthetic. So synthetics allow for a lower friction coefficient. So you've got much lower friction in the engine. The engine doesn't fight against the oil. So you'll have less wear, but you'll also see a gain in power. It might not be massive, but there will be a slight difference in the power output of the vehicle. And that's a big focus for our racing range. So we've got a 300V racing range, which a lot of the historic race cars run on. They race on this product. It's 100% synthetic. And I mean, we've got cars that are on 1955 vehicles running on this synthetic product. This product's designed to minimize the friction in the car. And we actually did a dyno test on a 3.6 Porsche Cup motor in Europe. And just by changing the oil, we made 7.2 horsepower, which is quite impressive. And that's what any race is looking for.
Okay, I think part of my next tip is I'm going to fish oil because that's going to be increase my horsepower by at least 20 horsepower or something. No, I'm just teasing. Okay, so you get normal conventional oils, which is mineral oils, as we say. Then you get like semi-synthetic, if I'm not mistaken, and then you get fully synthetic. Am I correct?
Yes, and then you get 100% synthetic, and there's a difference.
Oh my word! Okay, so there's one above the fully synthetic. Okay, and they all come with that 0W something or 10W something or whatever.
Yeah, generally your synthetics, your first number followed by the W will be lower. So you'll generally see a synthetic product will have a 0W or a 5W, whereas your mineral products will be more like a 15W, and then your semi-synthetics will be a 5W or a 10W. That's a general trend. I'm not saying it's exactly like that all the time, but it's a general trend that you can look at.
Okay, so coming back to oil changes, is Lloyd still? Lloyd, can you hear us, Lloyd?
There, Lloyd's back for a bit.
Yeah, he's back, but we can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Yeah, can you hear us?
Okay, cool, man. Yeah, I can hear you guys now. Sorry, man.
my
The
word.
internet just seemed to be dropping here.
No, we'll just
Okay,
blame
but I'm
Eskom.
back.
Load shedding. Okay, so maybe Byron wants to ask you. Okay, a couple of questions or so, because we were just chatting with Taki about some quite important things here. So Byron, you want to fire away to ask Lloyd something that maybe you want
I think let's actually just find out from Lloyd. He's the start in the relationship here and where it all started for him from the involvement with oils. I don't know if you could hear me. Lloyd, are you there?
No, I can't.
All right, I think we're having a few problems.
You lost him again.
Okay, Taki, coming back to the so I forgot the question I was going to ask you was so oil changes on a car. When I say oil change, I remember in the old days they would recommend every 10,000 kilometers, right? Would be kind of a standard that we used to, because my dad told me that. And then as the cars became more modern, but it made sense to me, because to me, the more often you changed your oil, the better. Well, just the oil was the heart of the engine. I mean, so if you have clean oil and new oil very often, it's actually a good thing. But I don't know, maybe it's not a good thing. But anyhow, so as times progressed, it went to 15,000, and some manufacturers say 20,000. So can you maybe just enlighten us a little bit about that?
So look at oil drain intervals. It is a very specific topic, and because oils have advanced so much, there are lubricants that can handle the longer drain interval. The big driving factor behind the drain intervals is your environmental impact. Obviously, oil does have a damaging effect on the environment if disposed of incorrectly. So first of all, to anybody changing oil, make sure you're disposing of it correctly. If you don't have a way of disposing of it and you've serviced your car yourself, head out to a workshop. They'll have a disposal bin, and then the Rose Foundation actually has companies that come around, collect that oil, and have it disposed in the correct manners. But that's
so you can't throw the oil in your neighbor's garden. I mean,
you won't have a happy neighbor, and that's definitely not advisable.
Well, his grass is growing like crazy next to me. I don't know what it is. It must possibly the 0W60, because that's purely a joke.
I thought your neighbor would have thought that he found oil, so I thought he'd be very happy.
Okay. On a serious note, so I understand it's actually important how you dispose of the oil. Very, very important. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So that's an important factor. But then, like if you look at a modern vehicle, your fuel economy is also much better. So you look at like cars that are doing 5 liters per 100 kilometers nowadays, and back in the day, you were lucky if you're getting 2 liters per kilometer with your nice big V8. So engine technology is advanced, and a big driving factor is Euro regulations and emissions, and that's put a lot of pressure on the lubricants as well, because that's also evaluated. With that said, the cars the engineering's advanced, your tolerances are much finer, you don't have as much friction in the cars, and the oil properties have increased. So there's a whole lot of factors that contribute to what we're seeing vehicles that say 20,000 kilometer drain interval. But at the same time, you're not doing any harm changing your oil earlier. You're actually benefiting yourself because the oil condition does stay better. I mean, for example, I was out at Dakar 2 years ago testing in the lab. We actually do oil sampling during the event for any competitor that would like. And by doing the sampling, we managed to monitor the engine condition. We call it condition monitoring. And from the oil of the car or bike or anything, I can sort of tell you what components are wearing, how fast they're wearing, and what might be introduced into the engine. And you pick up wear metals very quickly. So if you change your engine oil, you get rid of that the wear metals, and you'll promote engine life. But with that said, if the OEM does recommend a higher drain interval, they've done their testing, and on the right oil, that's the biggest factor. Using the right oil, you'll be able to do that. But if you don't use the right oil, you'll actually cause damage because it will start sludging up a lot quicker. So especially with those long drain intervals, make sure you're using a premium product that can handle it. I mean, for example, there's trucks out in Europe doing 100,000 kilometers on the oil. A big factor to that is the fuel that's getting put in. And why I mention that is our fuel is not always the best in South Africa. We're not sure where we're buying the fuel from, and we don't always ask the questions at fuel stations. And the type of fuel that's in your vehicle, especially in a diesel, can affect your drain interval. So there's a lot of factors to consider. And I always recommend on our products, on the Motortalk products, you're safe to run until your manufacturer's recommended drain interval if you're using the right standard product.
That's very, very interesting. I didn't even know that your normal your fuel made a difference to your oil. I mean, that is like very interesting.
Yeah, to give you an idea on that, just to give you a bit of a comment on that. So we in South Africa are quick to run around to fuel stations, and we celebrate when we see 50 ppm, and we'll be a bit upset when there's 500 ppm. And yes, if we find 10 ppm diesel, it's great. I'm actually testing out in Kenya. We got trucks running there. These guys are running on 5,000 ppm. So that's like a very high sulfur content in the fuel. And it's the same truck that we're running in South Africa. We got the trucks in South Africa running 40,000 kilometer drain intervals, some even up to 45,000 kilometer drain intervals. Whereas the same truck, but the only difference is the diesel used is doing 15,000 kilometers in Kenya because of how badly the fuel affects that.
So the worse the fuel, the less let's say in layman's terms, the dirtier the fuel, the more oil, the more often you're going to do your oil changes then.
Yeah, so it contaminates the oil a lot quicker, and you've got a lot more acid buildup, and your lubricant has to combat the acid buildup.
Sure, it's becoming complicated now, Byron.
just Tucky, that when you mentioned ppm, now I'm no genius here. That's parts per is it parts per notation? How does, just explain that system quickly. Or maybe I'm being
so ppm is parts per million. So that's parts per million. So generally wear metals are measured in parts per million, and the same with your sulfur content in diesel. It's measured in parts per million.
Parts per million. And also another one I actually want to just ask as well, additives, oil additives themselves. Now, what happens is not a lot of people understand, I think, the additive side of it. I think they just understand, okay, here's an oil, there's the appropriate oil put in the car, but how does the additives, create advantages?
So from an additive point of view, it's a tough one, and there's a lot that's happened in the additive market. So from a Motortalk point of view, we actually do no engine oil additives. The reason for this is our engine oils are formulated, or any engine oil is formulated with base oil and additives, and this is coming back to the recipe. We take years to develop the right additive package that we need in our oil to give you the right protection, the right cleaning effect, the right longevity and everything. And that's why we don't have engine oil additives, because if you go and add an additive in and it's the incorrect additive or too much of one, you throw the whole recipe out of balance. So it's like baking a banana bread again, and you have to use 2 tablespoons of salt for it to taste great. But then you go and buy another bottle of salt and you pour it into the mix and you use 3 or 4 times the amount of salt, you'll throw the whole taste out and it will taste horrible. That's the way that I get people to look at it from an engine oil additive point of view. So it's important to know what you're putting in, understand what the product does, and make sure it is beneficial. I know from a Motortalk point of view, I can't talk outside of Motortalk, but from a Motortalk formulation point of view, our lubricants have everything needed in the lubricant to protect your vehicle the right way and ensure that that engine longevity is maintained. So I would not recommend adding the additives to our product. We do have an engine flush, however, for a case where you're changing off for oil that you're not sure is in the engine, or you don't know which product was used that might have been the incorrect product, or your drain interval was 10,000 kilometers and you've been pushing 12 or 15,000 kilometers, or you've just noted sludge buildup in your engine. Our engine flush actually creates, it's a detergent and dispersant engine flush, so it cleans everything up, disperses it throughout the oil while you're idling your car before draining the oil out, and that stabilizes the compression of the vehicle and minimizes wear. So overall, you'll have a better performing engine after that. So there are additives that benefit that. We've also got a lot of fuel additives, and that's the drive around trying to maximize the performance we get out of the fuel and cleaning the whole fuel system, because the fuel systems have become so sensitive, and just using the right products where there's actually a need for them in the market.
Okay, so Taki, that's interesting, because so you, for example, just say I was driving a car and I used brand X, which wasn't Motul, right? Obviously. So I want to switch to Motul now. Do I have to do an engine flush, or do I have to, I don't know, whatever you call it? Is it necessary? Is it advisable? Is it better? Is it not going to do? You know, what advice can you give us there?
Yeah, so if you're using an oil that was of the right standard and the right profile product, you don't have to do an engine flush. There's not going to be damage mixing Motul with a different product. Our products all meet the right specifications, but your benefit lies in maximizing the performance you might get out of our product. So to maximize the performance out of our product, I'd recommend doing an engine flush. And it's a very easy, simple step. I mean, a can of engine flush is like 120 Rand. You'll buy that, add that into your oil, run your car for 10 to 15 minutes, drain out all your oil, and replace it with a fresh oil. That way, you're cleaning up any damage or any dirt or sludge that has developed in the motor, stabilizing the compression. I mean, you've also got carbon buildup around your rings and that. You manage to get that out. And then you're putting in a fresh oil. You've shopped for good quality oil, and you're maximizing the benefits of that good quality oil. Because what generally happens is if you mix a lower performing oil with a higher performing oil, you'll end up at the lower performing oil's properties, or closer to the lower performing oil's properties. It's not like a 50-50 mix where you come in the middle.
Okay, so Motul, like I don't know, you know, when you talk to people in the marketplace, they are of the perception that Motul is purely for racing. Now, coming back to, I mean, we know that Motul comes from a racing background, which is good, because I mean that's where the engines perform at their hardest, should I say. But for an average guy in the road that's, you know, using a normal road car going to work and back, I mean, does Motul suffice his needs as well?
Yeah, so because Motul's not been in the country for very long, people often almost tie us to a very expensive racing product only, and that's the perception they have. Where we cater for the full market. So we've got lubricants for any application, from your chainsaw, your lawnmower, your motorbike, and your daily vehicle, as well as trucks. The heavy-duty market, we've got products that we've tested all over, and we've had brilliant results. So it's not that Motul's an expensive product. We sell a valuable product that enforces reliability in the vehicles, and value for money is a big driver for what you're getting. You're getting a really good product at the right price. If you look at the real equivalents of our products, if you compare like for like with other products in the retail space, you'll see our pricing really is similar. So from our mineral range, if you're comparing a mineral product to a mineral product, semi-synthetic to a semi-synthetic, the only place that I'd like to pinpoint to people, all the Motul products are 100% synthetic, and there is a difference between a fully synthetic and a 100% synthetic product. You guys can all Google that, just type in the difference between fully synthetic and 100% synthetic. There's a nice explanation there. But yeah, in the marketplace, we've got the right product. Another big thing is you'll see on our cans, on the front label, it's got a whole lot of different numbers. It will say like MB229.5 or BMW LL04. Those are official OEM standards, and we actually send our lubricants to these OEMs to be tested, and they give us a letter approving our product. So any number on the front of that can is a physical approval that we've got, where the OEM's given us an approval letter, and that product can be used under warranty. I think that's a very important thing for with right to repair coming in.
Yes.
With right to repair coming in, you've got the right to service your vehicle away from a dealer, but at the same time, you've got to use the right products and the right standards. All the Motortalk products have various approvals on, and we cover a massive range of OEM approvals. I'm pretty sure any approval you're looking for, if you contact me, we can get you the right product with that approval.
You do Toyotas, don't you?
Yeah. So Toyota actually doesn't have a Toyota standard. They follow the API standard system, which is American Petroleum Institute, and we've got a product with the latest approval on that as well.
Okay, Baden, be safe, Baden. Me and Baden, we both race Toyotas.
I'm breathing a sigh of relief right now.
Yeah,
That's one thing over there.
Yeah, I was just for a second thinking, because just as a matter of interest, like, we both do Gymkhana, and we both race Toyotas. So yeah, so I'm so happy. So we need to contact. Yeah, you were saying.
So for you guys racing, you must definitely look at our 300V line. So our 300V line is the racing product line that I chatted about earlier that we've tested all over. And we're one of the few companies that make a product available that's a prototype product. So the 300V line that you can purchase here in South Africa is the same product the same product line, not necessarily the exact same product, because there's different viscosity grades. But the guys at Lamar are using that product, and we're developing on that product. The guys at MotoGP on the bike side are using a 300V product, and the same at Dakar Rally. They're racing with a product that you and I can walk into any shop and buy. Like 435 Oils has full accessibility to the product, and they can provide you guys with any racing product you need.
Okay, brilliant.
But the thing is,
not just racing, anything.
But Jackie, you just mentioned, of course, the three forms of racing. You mentioned Lamar, which is one of the great endurance classics of our time. MotoGP, talking about bikes, high revving, and you're talking about the Dakar. How much has that actually contributed to engine technology in the last 50 years? Putting cars through and bikes through hell, and coming up with the numbers at the end of the day to actually put back onto the road.
Exactly. So those events, the manufacturers use them to develop their technology majorly. I mean, you see now, just from a hybrid and electric vehicle perspective, a lot of that's being tested on the race circuit. And there's a reason that we partner with certain events, and a big reason of that is our testing and development. Motor's R&D happens on the racetrack. I'm fortunate enough to be involved in it, and it's a great place to see and understand and bring that information back to South Africa, and to see the work that goes into it. It's sleepless nights of trying to improve every single aspect of the product, and wherever we can, we pass that on to everybody. And it's also cool to be working for a company that makes those prototype products available to the end user. It's a full racing product that you can use as an end user, buy off the shelf. And the stupid thing, like I mentioned earlier, with a racing product, our 300V line, you're gaining power. You gain power by reducing friction in the vehicle. But the nice thing about that, if you reduce friction, you're reducing the wear rates of the car. So that increases the longevity, which is a big bonus for an end user. If you have less wear, your car won't have any mechanical issues, or not won't, but it will have less mechanical issues over a long period of time. So your engine will last a lot longer. But the other big benefit is fuel economy. You'll see better fuel economy by having a product that lowers the friction in your car, because your car's no longer fighting against the oil. It's just creating that power and putting it on the wheels. So for an end user, using a good product gives you a better engine lifespan and better fuel economy, which can save you immensely. I mean, if you can maybe get 0.8 kilometers further per liter over your full drain interval, it offsets that expense on the oil, because you might have paid extra 100 Rand for the 5 liter to use a synthetic product, but over the full 10 or 15,000 kilometer drain interval, you're doing an extra 800 kilometers on the fuel that you're using. So you're saving 80 liters of fuel, and the cost around that is massive. So a big thing that I always try to get across to people, instead of looking at the cost of the lubricant, is to rather look at the cost of your total lubrication. And that's quite an important point to take away.
That's important. Very important. Okay. So that is we spent like 35 minutes just talking about oil. We can go on for another 35 minutes about oil. Baden, is there anything else that you want to ask about oil before we go into? There are other lubricants out there. And maybe anything Taki wants to just clarify with the audience out there, if there's anything more specific they want to know. Maybe Baden got something to ask.
Yeah, if anybody's got questions, we can address them.
Yeah.
Hopefully, those who are listening can maybe just send in their questions to us. I'm sure there's a lot to ask, but one thing I actually want to touch on, of course, as well. When I think of oil, I always think of two strokes as well, which of course always gives me with a lovely sound, a lovely smell, and of course that's a big thing that Motor is involved in, of course, for many years as well, is the two-stroke side of things, karting, and not only karting. If you like to play around with the chainsaw in the backyard as well. That is very much something that will be on your mind. Now, going into that side of things, any advice or tips or, more about the two-stroke side of things?
Yeah, so the two-stroke side of things is also a very interesting aspect. And like we were saying, we've spoken 35 minutes about oil. I actually do a thing called Motor School, where I invite our dealers out to do training. It's actually a 5-day training course, the full Motor School. Generally, we cut it short to a day for most people that don't need all the information. But yeah, two-stroke's another big aspect, and we've got a large range of two-stroke oil. Again, standards are important. Synthetic character is important. You'll see our products have an extra characteristic called ester. It's a base oil that we use, ester base oil. And this is a kind of magnet. An ester molecule has a positive and negative point, and it acts as a magnet in your engine. That's a big benefit, and one of the big points that separates Motor in the market. Our ester base oil lowers the friction in the engine and protects the engine for a longer lifetime. And because a two-stroke engine's a total loss system, the reason I say that is your two-stroke and fuel is either mixed in a tank and injected, or your fuel is injected separately to your oil, but all of that's burnt off in the combustion process. So you need an oil that still burns off without blocking up the engine, but at the same time lubricates your crank and everything else in your engine correctly and gives you the protection you need. So a two-stroke produces a lot more power with a very simple design, but it needs the right protection and it wears a bit quicker. So the right mixture, the right product, and understanding which product you're using. So you get standards, API, JSO. JSO is probably the most famous. A lot of people think I cannot use the latest two-stroke on my old chainsaw, my old two-stroke engine, and you actually can. You benefit from that. You'll have less sludging up, less carbon buildup. You won't file your plugs as fast. And also from a smoke point of view, the latest two-stroke products are designed to be low smoke products because of the environmental aspects, and also burn a lot cleaner. So the engine will stay cleaner for much longer.
Baden, all I can tell you, my friend, I am going to be putting Motul, the 360 in my chainsaw and my lawnmower, and I'm going to have a couple of extra horsepower over my neighbor. Just watch me. I'll send you the video.
The 300V.
Those trees will just
300V, yeah. Watch me cut my front lawn with my new 300V lawnmower, the new oil in my lawnmower.
Yeah, so the only other thing on two-stroke I can mention to the guys is look at the standard. It's normally written on the front of the bottle. If you see something like JSO, TC or FC or FD. FD is a later standard than FC. So FD protects better, burns cleaner, and will have less smoke. So it's better to use an FD product than an FC product. And make sure you're using a product that has the product that meets the minimum requirement of your engine that you require it for. So yeah, and like you said, with the 300V, we've got 300V on the 4-stroke engine line. And then on the 2-stroke line, we've got a product called Motul 800. Those that are in the 2-stroke market, I don't really have to talk much about Motul 800. It's like almost a product universally used. A lot of people really rely on the product, and a great product for a lubrication point of view.
Like a quick question. So I run my race car on 50-50. So 50 pump fuel and 50 F. So
yes,
it's tuned for that. So your oils are compatible with that as well?
Yeah, so biofuel is a big topic. In South Africa, generally biofuel is used in a racing aspect. However, outside of Africa, a lot of countries are going over to biofuel for environmental impact. our lubricants are compatible with all different biofuels. So if you're running ethanol, our lubricants do combat the oxidation process that occurs through the use of ethanol. The big problem with ethanol is generally when you are running an ethanol mix, you're overfueling quite a bit. So you've got quite a bit of fuel dilution because that fuel doesn't all burn off in your combustion chamber. That will run into your oil and thin out the oil. So you've got to make sure that you're not overfueling that much that the oil becomes very, very thin and loses its viscosity, and that way loses protection. So that's just the only thing to monitor. And that's more on the fueling side. Make sure you have the right fueling system and that your car is actually tuned accordingly. Other than that, our oils are fully compatible and can resist that. But again, going over to a racing product, when you're using some ethanol or methanol or anything like that, using a racing product just benefits you from there because that's designed to protect against those type of fuels a lot better.
Okay, cool. Byron, before we go over to brake fluid, you want to ask anything?
Okay, so now in my attempt to sound kind of like an engineer, which I'm not, standard wet sumps and dry sumps, oil catch cans, things like that. How does that change the whole dynamic when it comes to lubricants? Does it change the whole dynamic, really? Or is it something, that just basically it stays as a standard?
So it changes the dynamic in a certain way, but I wouldn't say it's something to overthink because the engine's generally designed around that. Unless you're doing external modifications, you must understand what the modification you're doing, what the impact of that modification will be on the vehicle. But if the vehicle comes like that, it's been designed around that, and then it's just critical that you're using the right lubricant standard for the right application, and that's very, very important when you look at your lubricant choice. That the vehicle, if you now have a vehicle that says use an API SN or SP product, then make sure you're using that because that's essential for the protection properties, the wear properties, the piston cleanliness, sludge buildup, pretty much everything about the lubricant is spoken out of these standards. So make sure you've got the right standard.
Okay. Pardon, no more questions from your side as far as oil is concerned. Let's go to brake fluid. Okay, so brake fluid is also a complex thing to talk about. So in my experience, I know you get different dots of brake fluid, dot 3, dot 4, dot 5, and I don't know if it goes higher than that. So take us a little bit. Well, the only thing I know about brake fluid is that, my friend told me you put a dot 5 in your race car.
I'm not a friend, eh? I'm not that friend.
I'm just starting to wonder about your friends, Abdul. Your friends.
But you know what I mean? In the marketplace, it's my friend told me. Yeah, so exactly. Take us a little bit through brake fluid. How does it differ out there in the marketplace? What are the dots for? How often do you have to change it? Do you get good and bad brake fluids? Those type of things about brake fluid.
Yeah, so before we get on to the brake fluid topic, I'm going to ask you guys a question since you guys are asking me lots of questions.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've noticed on a brake fluid can, there's a label on every single can. It says the dry boiling point and the wet boiling point of brake fluid. Generally, the wet boiling point is about 80 to 100 degrees lower than your dry boiling point. What would you guys say the dry boiling point and the wet boiling point actually represent?
I got no idea.
You caught me out now.
all I can say is that this is actually quite hilarious because I know about brake fluid is just different. You get dot 4 and you get all different dots. So I said, okay. The highest dot is going to work for my race car because it's not going to get hot. It's not going to boil. That's all I know. So you put cooling ducts on your car and hopefully it's going to work. That's about as much as I know about brake fluid. Literally.
All right. So let's try to dig into it and answer the questions on brake fluid. So on brake fluid, you got dot 3, dot 4, and dot 5.1.
Okay.
Now, as you move up with your DOT specification, so DOT is the Department of Transportation, and it's actually a safety standard. in my opinion, one of the most overlooked standards in the industry. People often forget about it. They think dot's just a dot on the wall, but it really talks about your safety in a vehicle.
Okay.
So as you move from dot 3 to dot 4 and then on to dot 5, there's various aspects or characteristics that are monitored, starting out with your wet and dry boiling point. So from dot 3 to dot 4, your wet and dry boiling point increase, and the same from dot 4 to dot 5, so the brake fluid will boil at a higher temperature. Then you've got seal expansion, seal compatibility, the compressibility factor of the brake fluid as well. So compressibility factor is how much that brake fluid actually compresses. You want to eliminate as much compression as possible, and that's how you transfer the power from your brake pedal onto your brake pads. Then the seal expansion is very important, because if you're using a brake fluid that doesn't have a dot specification on it, that fluid generally will cause rapid seal expansion. And what happens then is the seal may pop out somewhere in your system, and you'll have full-on brake failure, so your car won't be able to stop. So that's a very important aspect. So yeah, that would be what my biggest focus would be. Look at those. If you look at ABS systems, most ABS systems need a dot 5.1 or a dot 4 low viscosity or dot 4 class 6 product to allow the ABS to work correctly. And then the other thing is brake fluid has a drain interval, and this drain interval is linked to what we spoke about earlier, wet and dry boiling point. So I've had a lot of different people. It's a question I like asking, because it's a very important question that people don't consider. So brake fluid, when it's new, if you test the boiling point of it, as soon as you open your brake fluid, it will boil at around your dry boiling point that's labeled on the bottle. Let's look at Motor's dot 5.1. So our dry boiling point is 276 degrees Celsius. So when you boil, when that brake fluid is new, if you heat it up to 276 degrees Celsius, it will start boiling. When brake fluid boils, you lose brakes altogether. So brake fade on a racetrack comes from that. However, over time, brake fluid absorbs water because it's a hygroscopic product. So it absorbs water moisture. And if it absorbs 3% water moisture, it drops to the wet boiling point, which is 185 degrees Celsius in our dot 5.1's case. And that happens in a sealed brake system in about 12 to 24 months, depending on the system. Your owner's manual will give you a drain interval. And now the problem with that is if you think of 100 degrees, that's massive already. If you absorb more moisture, it will drop even lower. And then I'm not sure if any of you guys have been in a car without any brakes. It's an exciting feel, and your heart wants to jump out of your chest, and you're not sure if you should open the door and dive out or try to stop this thing. So it's never nice, and that's an important factor to look at.
It actually did happen to me, Byron. I was, Killarney, I was going down the back straight with my old car, and I came to turn 5 where we have the Gymkhanas. And I didn't have any brakes. I geared down, I went straight across, with the marshal standing in the middle there. I almost killed the marshal. Eventually I stopped. So I understand what you're talking about. Okay, so that's quite interesting.
And it's a big factor, because in the South African market, guys generally change brake fluid when a component fails, then they'll change brake fluid. They never think of brake fluid having a lifespan. So it's very important to change it. And then additionally to that, on the racing line, Motor's actually got a racing brake fluid line. So our brake fluids are labeled RBF. And we've got RBF 600, 660, and 700. All of these are dot 4 brake fluids, so they all adhere to the correct safety standards. And they've got extremely high boiling temperatures. So, for example, RBF 700's got the highest dry boiling point on the market, which is 336 degrees Celsius. So using a racing brake fluid eliminates that compressibility that I was talking about. We always work to get a better compressibility factor, and then from a boiling temperature as well, push that up, because especially when you're racing, you're getting really high temperatures in your brake region, and you want to maximize your braking performance.
So you don't have to go to dot 5. You can use dot 4, but the 700 or the 600, whatever you're talking about.
So if you're using our RBF 660 or 700 or even RBF 600, you'll have a much higher boiling point on the racetrack, and that's dot 4 brake fluid. So it doesn't have to necessarily be .5.1.
Ah. So quick question. So when you drain your system of brake fluid, you got to drain all the old brake fluid out of there.
You want to try get as much of it out as you can. It's not an easy system to get everything out of. You generally need like a actual brake system pump to get everything out, because you want to try eliminate any contamination that occurs. So if you look at your brake fluid, as soon as you put new brake fluid in, there is contamination happening. And like I was saying earlier with your engine oils, if the properties fall quicker towards the worst performing products. If you have old brake fluid in there and you've got 50% old brake fluid and 50% new brake fluid, you'll have 70% of the old brake fluid's characteristics and only 30% of the new brake fluid's characteristics.
Yeah. Sure, that's interesting. Byron, you look like you have 5 questions.
5 questions. I think you pretty much knocked the nail on the head, because I think brake fluid itself is something that's not always thought about, even though it's one of the most important things. Everybody wants to go based on, power and engine and everything like it, not actually stopping accurately or in time. Just talking about that as well. Now, cars with different braking systems. For instance, some of your older cars, a lot of them have drums at the back, discs at the front. Not all cars having discs all around, and also ABS as well. Does that throw anything into factor with the choosing of brake fluids and types?
Yeah, so depending on the brake system design, you'll have more heat, especially on your older brake systems. They'll build up a lot more heat. So generally, your old cars are the cars that tend to have brake issues a lot more than your modern cars. If you look at your modern performance vehicles, a lot of money is actually spent on the braking systems. They've got upgraded calipers, upgraded discs, and everything's designed around stopping. So on the older vehicles, they tend to run a bit hotter. The same thing I was saying with your ABS systems, you got to make sure you're using a brake fluid that's compatible with the ABS system. So the viscosity of brake fluids differ. We were speaking about viscosity earlier, and you need a certain viscosity for the different systems. So a lot of the ABS systems will state use only a .5.1 brake fluid or use only a .4 class 6 brake fluid. Then you've got to make sure that the brake fluid you're using does meet that standard to be able to be compliant with that full system, because if you're using something outside of that, the ABS system might not engage correctly or might engage at a delayed rate, which will affect your braking.
Okay, we have 7 minutes left, and we didn't even cover diff oil, gearbox oil. Okay, just quick question regarding brake fluid. So obviously you use the brake fluid in your clutch system as well if it's hydraulic. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so is there also a specification for that?
Yeah, so there will be a specification on your clutch unit as well. Generally, it would be a .4, but you also, a lot of the modern clutches are .5.1.
Okay, so that kind of wraps up our brake fluid side in a nutshell. Now we're going to jump to, let's say gearbox or diff oil. Let's start with diff oil, end off with gearbox oil. So diff oils, obviously.
Again, I think with our 7 minutes left, a good topic to talk about is coolant. Diff oil, gear oil is also very important to look at.
There we go. Yes.
But coolant is a big misunderstood topic.
Okay,
and a lot of color shopping happens on coolants.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do coolants for 7 minutes, and we'll go over by 5 minutes, and we will do the gearbox and diff oils in 5 minutes. Happy with that, Byron? Happy with
Perfect.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
No, well, of course.
Let's go. I like the green coolant. Is that the good one?
Yeah, it tastes nice. It tastes very nice too.
No. That'll kill you. Trust me.
Oh, sorry. There was the other stuff in the fridge. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So the reason I suggested we talk about coolant is it is a color shopping game. A lot of people buy coolant on color, which is the worst way to buy coolant. So you'll pop the bonnet on your car, you'll look inside the bottle, and you see it's pink or it's green or it's every color of the rainbow, and you walk into the shop and you buy that color of coolant.
Yeah.
The colors have been introduced by different manufacturers to try represent the right coolant, and the oil manufacturers or coolant manufacturers will generally try follow the coolant color or batch of colors to stick to different cars. So just like engine oils have standards, coolants have standards, and you have to meet the right standard for the coolant you're using or for your car. And purely buying on colors, bad, because you can go and buy the wrong coolant because the color is purely a dye. It's got nothing to do with the actual corrosion inhibitors. That's the important part, the actual protecting aspect of the coolant. So you get inorganic technology, organic acid technology, and hybrid technology, which is almost a mix of the two. Depending on the components on the vehicle, especially with your modern vehicles, you got a lot of softer alloys, aluminium, sensitive water pumps used, and you need the right protecting aspect. It's a small percentage of the coolant, but you need the right protecting agent to actually lubricate and protect all these sensitive parts. So yeah, I would definitely say don't just buy on color. Look at what you're buying and understand it. And then the other thing I've come across in South Africa is people will stand proud and tell you they're using 98% concentrate antifreeze. And then they'll argue as well and say, no, but my car has to have that. And when you're talking 98% antifreeze, it really is that. It stops the car from freezing. It doesn't assist the cooling ability at all. So your car won't freeze until it gets to minus 67 degrees Celsius. So I don't have a fridge big enough to put my car in to get to that temperature. I'm not sure if you guys have it. But you don't need that.
Just a quick question, Taki, on coolant. Like, you got your normal motor spares, right? And you get coolant that says 50% and 90%, I think. So it says on the bottle, if it's 90%, you got to mix a certain amount.
96% and 50-50.
Yeah. So what the question is, can too much of the wrong coolant cause your car to overheat?
So we look at 50%, the 50-50 or the 96. So let's start at the 50-50. The coolants that say 50-50 are essentially what you'll call a premix coolant. So they mixed 50% glycol, 50% distilled water. And that mixing ratio gives you about minus 37 degrees Celsius protection from freezing and then the cooling part. Whereas if you go and buy 96%, that 96% is 96% glycol, which is the antifreeze agent. So that 96% will only freeze at minus 67 degrees Celsius. The problem here is glycol cools at half the rate of water. So you need to increase the amount of water you need in your car, especially in racing or in a hot environment. By increasing the amount of water, you'll get better cooling efficiency. So if you buy a concentrate, you've got to dilute it. So if you buy a 96%, which is a concentrate, you've got to dilute it with water, but in this case, distilled water, not tap water or boil water, because you have different ions and calcium and things inside the normal water that will actually cause corrosion in your radiator. So distilled water, you've got the right stuff, mixing it down to what you need. So if you look on concentrates, it'll give you a mixing ratio like 33%, and that will give you minus 20 degrees Celsius protection. So just understanding that, and also understanding the cooling that you need and the type of coolant you need, and understand the coolant, because the right coolant can actually promote heat transfer and benefit your vehicle. I mean, I've got cars that run now on a motor products and are running 5 or 10 degrees cooler than they were standard, just by using the right product and mixing correctly.
Okay, so from your range of products, what coolant do you suggest we use on road cars and on our race cars?
So on road cars, we've got 3 products in the market. We've got AutoCool Expert, which is a hybrid technology product. Depending on your vehicle, you might need a hybrid technology product. For example, BMW is a big driver on that. Then you've got AutoCool Optimal, which is an orange coolant, which is our organic acid technology product, and that's one of the later technologies used for cooling technology. Mercedes-Benz is a big driver on organic acid technology. Then you've got a low-brid product, probably the most common. VW requires a G13 coolant, and this is our AutoCool G13. So for your car, your daily passenger cars, I would say look at those 3 products. Make sure you're getting the right product. The easiest way to find the right products, going onto the Motortalk website, using our oil selector and choosing the correct product from there. Our oil selector gives you the right product for the car. And then from a racing point of view, we've got a cooling additive called MoCool. This mixes in at 5% with distilled water. So if you've got a 10-liter radiator, you'll use 500 mils of MoCool, the rest distilled water, and this will give you the best cooling capacity. And your other big benefit with MoCool is it's got no glycol in it, and MSA has actually approved it to be used on the race circuit.
Yes.
So you're not
I was
allowed any
gonna ask you that,
glycol
yeah.
if you're on a
Correct.
tar track. And now
correct.
with MoCool, you manage to get the protection you need as well as the cooling efficiency. So for anybody racing, I always advise use MoCool, and you'll drop your operating temperature by 10 to 15 degrees Celsius by using our MoCool, because it assists heat transfer.
Okay, that was my next question, because glycol is not allowed anymore, because if it spills in the track, it's like oil. It just makes a lot of nonsense on the track.
Yeah.
So MoCool can be used on a tar circuit because it hasn't got those properties. Okay, fully understood. Byron, you must have 2 questions at least.
No, not at all, Abdul. I think as well, another thing that actually I thought was more simple than it sounds, because what happens is people think, you just buy a bottle of coolant, you put it in, and that's it. But also coolant, not only there to, for cooling purposes, but always for rust and the causing of things like shale. Do you guys also have a product for flushing of the radiator system?
So very good question on that. So I'm sure most people in South Africa have opened a radiator and seen that white layer that forms inside. And then you can tell somebody they've been using tap water in their radiator, and they're going to say no, but they have been using tap water because that's calcium buildup. Yeah. And like you say, you need to get rid of that, especially when you're buying the right coolant. You've bought a car that you're not sure what coolant was in there. The wrong coolant has been used in your car, and you just want to get your car onto the right coolant, prevent premature failure on any components. We've got a radiator clean additive. It's a radiator flush. You add it into your radiator, and you'll let your car idle until it gets hot with your heater on full blast, just to keep all the channels open, allow that flush to get through all the channels, break down any deposits in the radiator, drain it all out, and put the new coolant in, and maximize the protection and performance from the new coolant. So that's a very important thing. And I think a takeaway from this is there's a difference between coolant and antifreeze. And in South Africa, the coolant part's more important than the antifreeze part. We just need like -10, -15 degrees Celsius. In worst case scenarios, -20. But we need to make sure our cars are cooling off quickly, especially up here in Joburg. Our traffic likes to drive you mental, and you don't want a car overheating.
Okay, cool. Right, 3 minutes. Diff oil and gearbox oil.
I think just antifreeze there. Just one more thing, Abdul's more if you live in the Alps. When you live in the Alps, so I think that is. I think Africa. I think we're fine. There we go.
Absolutely. So just Taki, 3 minutes on gearbox oil and diff oil.
Yeah.
The most important stuff that we can talk about quickly.
So the most important stuff on diff oil, gearbox oil, automatic gearbox oil is very, very important. Know which standard you're using. Know which gearbox fluid's the right one for your car. Use the Motortalk oil selector again, or our Motortalk app to get the right information there. We've also got automatic transmission flash to clean everything out when you're changing. And we've also got a concept called Motortalk Evo, which is automatic transmission maintenance system. So if you guys want more info on that, just feel free to contact Motortalk. We're happy to assist. And 435 Oils can also assist you with all that information. Then looking at the manual transmission side and the differential side, viscosity is a very important factor here. Again, using the right viscosity. I've heard of a lot of places in South Africa where guys will think, okay, I need to use a thicker oil because it gives more protection. In a certain degree, thicker oil gives you more protection. But if you go too thick in the wrong application, you actually create wear and you create pressure on components that shouldn't have that pressure. So stick to the viscosity you need. A lot of testing goes into that to make sure you have the right viscosity, which the manufacturer will recommend on the gearbox. So don't always just say, okay, my car is a racing car, I'm going to use a 75W140 in a manual gearbox. 9 out of 10 times it won't be the right viscosity, and you'll damage your gearbox more. Then outside of that, you've got API GL spec. GL4 and GL5 are the most common. Most people assume that GL4 is for manual transmissions and GL5 for differentials. It's a nice way to look at it, but it's not always true. But what's made easy from the Motortalk point of view is we've got all our gear products are GL4 and GL5. So you covered from a spec point of view. You've got to go make sure you've got the right viscosity for your application. And that ranges depending on the vehicle. It ranges quite drastically. Again, on the racing side, with you guys being involved in the racing, we've got a Gear 300 line, which is a pure racing product. It's got esters, again, ester base oil to promote protection, reduce the friction, and stick to the gears, especially at startup, minimize the wear. And that's 75W90. And then we've also got a Gear 300 LS and a Gear Competition, which are both limited slip differential compatible. And that's an important aspect. For those of anybody watching that don't know what a limited slip is, it follows the same principle as a differential, but it's got like a type of clutch pack inside. And for that clutch pack to activate, it needs certain oil properties. And what that differential does is when there's load removed from a certain wheel, with a standard differential, the wheel in the air will turn and the wheel on the ground won't carry on spinning. Whereas a limited slip differential will engage at that point and transfer the power to the wheel that's on the ground that can actually track the car forward. And for that engagement to occur, you need the correct lubricant. So that's why you'll use a limited slip compatible product, which we do have in our range. And again, those are 100% synthetic products. We've also got mineral products that are in our gear range for your heavy duty commercial application, your day-to-day cars. We've got products for any service application you need.
Okay. Right, guys, we're kind of out of time here, but I can talk to you for another hour, Taki. There's so much knowledge and information and, value adding that's come out of tonight's program. It's unbelievable. So, myself and Byron, we kind of organize the Gymkhanas in the Western Cape. And I think it would be a good partnership for us to have with Motul and with 435 Oils, especially because we run the whole series of Gymkhanas in Cape Town. And I think, after the information of tonight, we must really do something together as far as you guys and 435 Oils are concerned. And also thank you to 435 Oils. They're one of the sponsors of our show tonight. And also to Bevan BH Media. They thank you for them for making it possible as well. So Taki, maybe do the guys contact you directly if they want? Well, obviously in Cape Town, they contact 435 Oils. I mean, I understand that.
Yeah.
But for technical information and technical knowledge, they can also contact Lloyd. Am I correct?
Yeah. So Lloyd's got a wealth of knowledge himself. If he can't help you, he will pass that information on to me and I will contact you and give you the information. You can also contact Motul on Facebook or Instagram, send us messages. I actually answer most of the technical questions that come through on the Facebook and Instagram pages. And we're always happy to assist. The Motul team is happy to assist. And we'll try and get you guys any information that we can. We're happy to share it and assist from that point of view. So, yeah, definitely, if you're looking for oil out in the Western Cape, 435 Oils has our full range and they can get any products you need. And, yeah, we're just happy to assist. I would say for the guys, look at servicing, look at what you need for your car, make sure you're getting the right thing. Look at additives as well. Make sure that the additive you're using is the correct additive for the application. Maximize the performance out of your car. I mean, look at fuel additives as well. We didn't get a chat about that. We've got a full range of fuel additives, especially with injectors being so sensitive and expensive nowadays. Make sure you're lubricating them correctly and preventing dirt buildup in that. We've got additives to help that. And overall, yeah, just thanks to you guys for a great show. And it's thanks for having me on the show and allowing me to share my knowledge. I'm always happy to try assist wherever I can. I don't have all the answers, but if I can't answer a question, I will get the information and give you the correct answer. So thank you very much, Byron and Abdul. Thanks for having me. And to Lloyd, he's not on at the moment.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is I got a new friend to ask now. You know what I'm saying?
Perfect. You're welcome to.
Byron, anything you want to say just in closing before I close the show?
No, thank you very much, Taki, for being on the show. It's unfortunate that Lloyd was having some technical problems. We hope to have him on a future show. But I think, and I'm honestly and sincerely saying that the last hour and a bit was a very educational hour. And let me tell you one thing. You take a lot of stuff for granted when you're working on cars. When you think you know everything, and then what happens is there's still more stuff that you don't know. But it's great that we have guys like yourself and guys like Lloyd as well that can actually help us through that, and actually as well, just enjoy our racing and enjoy our motoring. But thank you very much again for being
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
And thanks, Abdul, for everything.
Thanks, guys, and thanks to Lloyd and 435 Oils for making it possible and putting us in contact and getting me on the show. It's always great to be involved. And yeah, we try in every way we can.
No, thoroughly enjoyed it. Baden, thanks for your time. Taki, thanks for your time. Lloyd, thanks for your time as well. I think Lloyd had the wrong coolant in tonight, so the internet wasn't working. But you know what? Just the fact that you guys are prepared to give up your time and discuss actually a very, very, very important topic, because there are very few people that want to talk about things like this. But I find it extremely interesting, and it can save you a lot of money in the long run. Putting the correct lubricants in your car and the correct coolants or correct additives or whatever. So Taki, thank you very, very much. We really, really appreciate your time. And the viewers out there, thank you so much. And the next time me and Baden is going to be on is going to be the next 2 weeks. But I think Clint and Patrick is on next week sometime discussing the Porterville Rally or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the Porterville Rally is coming up this weekend, and I think we'll hear a lot from the happenings with the Porterville Rally. This is a much anticipated event.
Yeah, but the next program is going to be, they're going to be talking about the upcoming Kenyan Rally, apparently, or something.
Yes.
So that's the next program,
Yes.
And then we come on after
Safari.
that. Yeah, the Safari Rally, correct, yeah. Okay, and then guys, there's going to be some great news coming from the Gymkhana side as well. We will be keeping you guys updated as far as the Gymkhana is concerned and the new developments as well. And yeah, once again, Baden, thank you for everything. Bevan in the background there, 435 Oils, and especially Taki. Thank you so much. And Lloyd, I know you tried your best, but you know what? We know that you mean well. Thank you, guys, and all the best. And just share all this valuable information and chat to you guys soon. And have a wonderful evening. Cheers. Bye.
Good night.